Okay, here we go with chapters 5 and 6. I hope you find this is going to start getting a little bit more interesting. Mr. Miller accepted the invitation for a nice night out, and yes, he did have a wife. Cassandra, and Charles said she would love a night out as well. He told Bill that his wife had played the flute in the city symphony for over 25 years and really enjoyed her musical life. Charles knew she would love to go to the concert and get to meet Bobby and his family. Bill also told them that Bobby's friend and neighbor, Diane, a violinist, would be coming as well, and she was in the same grade as Bobby in school. Charles liked that as well. They all arrived at the Crescent restaurant at about 5:30, as Bill had made reservations for 6. It was one of the nicest places to eat in Marshall, and they all admitted that they missed coming there over the past few years. But everyone seemed so busy, it just never really crossed anyone's mind. Oh, there were nights of KFC, of course, but that is not the same as a real night out. Charles helped his wife out of the car, and everyone immediately noticed how beautiful she was, slender and the same height as Charles. She was beautifully dressed in a dark gray long dress and had a light gray shawl wrapped over her shoulders. Everyone could see what a classy lady she was, and she approached everyone with a very warm smile on her face. Cassandra spoke first. "It was so nice of you to invite us out for an evening," she said warmly. "I often have to coerce Charles to get out of the house once in a while, but I know his business keeps him very busy," she adds. Excuse me. "Oh, Mother," replied Charles, "I warned you about not staying even part-time with the symphony, as I knew you would not like retirement that much," he said, with a big smile. "I know," said Cassandra. "I was only teasing you to make you feel guilty," she said with a wink. "Mrs. Miller, this is my wife, Mary, our son, Bobby, and his classmate at school, Diane Davis, a violinist in the school band," stated Bill Mason. "It is so nice to meet all of you," said Cassandra. "I am so happy to see these young people into music, as it will last a lifetime, I'm sure. I still give some flute lessons once in a while for kids at the high school, which is great fun for me," she adds. "Let's go on inside. I'm very hungry," she states. "I do love this restaurant and haven't been here in a while." They all head inside, the men allowing the ladies to go in first, and the doorman opens the door for the ladies and tips his hat. This was going to cost Bill a pretty penny for 6 people, but he was more than glad to do it and give everyone a nice night out. Their waiter was Marshall Murphy, the high school quarterback, shortstop, and drummer in the school jazz band. As a senior, he had earned a partial scholarship for sports and the rest for music, as he was quite an accomplished drummer, starting when he was only 4 years old. He was also very well liked at the school, and all the girls went crazy over his Troy Donahue looks and blonde hair. He was too shy and such a great person to not let it go to his head. He had bigger plans, and going to Michigan in the fall was a huge start. Marshall's father was the head of surgery at the General Hospital, and his mother was a psychologist in private practice. Marshall's 2 older twin sisters were already in med school, one in Michigan State and the other at the University of Illinois. They were both to graduate this coming year and then do their internship. Surely a successful family, if there ever was one. Marshall knew Bobby as they played baseball in the Legion League, where Bobby was in his first year there this past summer. Bobby had been to many of the high school football and baseball games and had a chance to play in some pickup games at the high school baseball field last summer. Bobby remembered that Marshall always picked Bobby to be on his pickup team and let him play center field, as he knew Bobby could really run. Bobby could track down just about any fly ball hit near center field. He was trying to work on his hitting, which was a little bit behind the rest of his game. "Hey, Bobby," shouted out Marshall, but not too loudly. "Nice to see you." "Marshall, these are my parents, Bill and Mary, our neighbor Diane Davis, and this is Mr. and Mrs. Charles Davis of Davis Manufacturing," added Bobby. "Mr. Davis is nice enough to help me get back into playing the clarinet," he added. "Well, good for you," added Marshall. "I would never give up my music, as it is great fun being in the jazz band." Marshall said with a big smile, "Keep with it, and you might even be in the school jazz band or in the symphony one day." "Diane is a very good violinist," added Bobby, "as we are in the same class at school. Mrs. Miller played in the city symphony for 25 years, we just found out," stated Bobby. "Well, we are in the presence of celebrity, aren't we?" added Marshall. "It is so nice to meet all of you. Let me show you to your table. Right this way." Marshall moved to the front of our party and took us to a nice large table by a big window with a view of the river downtown. It was beautiful as the sun was about to go down, with the river between the restaurant and the sunset. "This is lovely," said Cassandra to Bill. "This is going to be such a nice evening, and to think we are going to top it off with a nice concert is more than I could have hoped for," she stated with a warm smile. "Mary, would you come sit by me? And Diane, come over here so we can have some girl talk," she added. The ladies did as she asked. Cassandra was doing her best to make everyone feel comfortable, and they were. The men moved to the other end of the table and took their seats. "Well, boys, it's just us now," excuse me, stated Charles. "We can just let the girls have their girl talk," he added with a smile. "So, Bobby, tell me about your first lesson with Mark," asked Charles. The fun evening had just begun. Bobby began to tell him all about as Marshall was on the other end getting the beverage orders from the ladies. The ladies had all ordered Parmesan-crusted chicken, steamed broccoli, and sweet mashed baked potato with brown sugar and butter. The men ordered steak with a baked potato with butter. Bill and Charles had green beans, and Bobby had corn. They all had such a wonderful evening, and everyone was in great spirits and got along like long-lost friends. Charles even stated that the next night was on him. Charles knew the owner and asked if Marshall could have a break and come share dessert with their table, and he said that would be fine. So Marshall joined them and filled in everybody about his plan. Marshall was surprised that his father was fine with him not going to med school like his sisters, as he felt Marshall was so gifted musically that he would end up with a music career anyway, which was fine for the family. He didn't think the NFL was in his future, but baseball might be a possibility, but he was more shooting for a career in music. Marshall was going to major in music performance and composition and minor in mathematics. If it didn't work out, he could always become a CPA and have a real job. They all had a big laugh over that. Marshall was number 10 in his graduating class, so success was on tap for him. After dessert, they all headed out to the university and were so excited about the concert and getting to hear Mark play in a small ensemble setting. Bill and Mary were in high hopes that this might be a real motivator for Bobby. They parked in a large lot by the auditorium and went into the beautiful performance hall, which was in a large oval with a balcony. At the far end was home to a $4 million Jaco pipe organ that was just magnificent to look at. Cassandra said that it was one marvelous instrument, and you just don't hear the low notes, you feel them in your bones. She made everyone promise that when she found a performance date for the organ, everyone would come back with them, and everyone agreed. She also informed everyone that there was an even bigger $6 million Jekyll organ at Emory University in Atlanta. As they all entered Schwartz Auditorium, the seating was first come, first choice, and they all made their way to about the middle of the center section, as it was not even 1/5 full. As they began to take their places, the manager of the auditorium recognized Cassandra Miller and rushed over to greet her. "Robert Martin, how nice to see you," said Mrs. Miller. "Cassandra, how beautiful you look this evening," stated Robert. "I had no idea you were planning on coming here this evening." "Robert, this is my husband, Charles." They shook hands. "This is Mr. and Mrs. Mason and their clarinet student son, Bobby. His neighbor and classmate and violinist, Diane Davis," said Cassandra, like they had all been long-lost friends for decades. "How nice of you all to come, as this is one of our best music performances of the school year. There will be 3 quartets performing, works of Brahms, Mozart, and Aaron Copland," he announced. "Robert," said Charles, "Bobby is being taught by Mark Malone, as they just started this week here at the university, twice weekly, Mondays and Fridays," added Charles. "Oh, that is wonderful," replied Robert. "Mark is our best clarinet player on campus, and we hope he can stay and work on his master's next year in music competition." "I think that will happen," stated Charles, "as we intend to support his education to the fullest. He is nearly symphony ready in our book, and Cassandra would know," he concluded. "Well, that is certainly true," added Robert. "We sure miss you in the symphony, Cassandra, but we knew you felt it was time to slow down. You had been so kind to help Emily Rogers get ready to assume your place in the symphony, and she was most grateful for your kind attention. She is a marvelous player," he added. "Yes, she is," replied Cassandra. "She was ready long before I decided to move on. It was an easy choice." "Well, so nice to see you all again and meet all the rest of you," said Robert. "Please come back when you can, and maybe, Cassandra, we can get you to do a guest performance on the flute at some point. I know the students would love to hear you play again," he added hopefully. "I might just do that," said Mrs. Miller. "There are some new pieces that I've been working on at home that are about ready, I think," she added. "You just let me know, and we will make a concert date out of your schedule," he added. "I would love for that to happen." He shook everyone's hand and then parted for the back of the auditorium to welcome some other guests arriving. It looked like the house was going to be packed for tonight's performance. The first performance was a clarinet concerto by Aaron Copland. Aaron Copland's clarinet concerto, also referred to as a concerto for clarinet, strings, and harp, was written between 47 and 49, although the first version was available in 1948. There were 4 on stage, Mark with the clarinet, a violinist, 1 cello, and a very petite young lady playing the harp. She had to get assistance moving the instrument on stage. Bobby leaned over to Mrs. Miller and said, "I think she should have chosen the flute," said Bobby with a chuckle. "I think you are right," Cassandra said. "That is too much instrument for such a tiny young girl." With that, the house lights dimmed and the performance began. Mark's performance was beautiful, as were the players with him. Cornwell was well known for producing some excellent musicians, and it was proving true here tonight. Every one of the performances was brilliant, and everyone who took the time to attend was provided an excellent evening of music. They were all glad they came. At the end of the concert, everyone said their goodbyes in the parking lot, and everyone gushed about what a great evening it had been. They all had a wonderful time. Bobby and Diane knew they had their work cut out for them to be able to play at this level, but they were going to try. They were motivated. Charles reminded everyone that the next evening was on him, and he could not wait for another concert. Cassandra was beaming that she had the chance to make new friends. She even indicated that she might work on composing a new piece for the three of them to play, a flute, clarinet, and violin trio. That would be great fun. The two middle schoolers were all in on that. They all bid each other a good night, headed to their cars, and headed home. Bill and Mary said they can't remember when they had so much fun, but Bobby and Diane sat quietly and just in the back seat, thinking about their chance to play with Mrs. Miller. They were getting worried that they would never be ready for that. Chapter 6. When the Masons and Diane arrived home, Bobby walked Diane to her door to make sure she was safe. Diane thanked Bobby for inviting her, as she had a great time and that she would talk to him tomorrow. They said their final goodbyes. When Bobby was in his front door, his parents made their way into the kitchen to get some sodas out of the fridge. They took the bottles of Coke into the living room and handed one to Bobby as he came in the door. They were the smaller, shapely, old-style smaller Coke bottles, just enough to drink before bed. "Well, Bobby, what did you think about tonight?" asked Dad. "It was quite a night to be sure," said Bobby. "Aren't the Millers just the nicest people you could ever want to meet?" he added. "They sure are," added Mary. "What a nice couple. And what a nice thing they are doing for you," she added. "Getting out and going to the concert was very nice tonight," she added. "We need to do this more often. Don't you think, Bill?" she asked. "Without a doubt," he added with a big smile. "We should have been doing this a long time ago, but we will from now on," he added. "There is no reason not to do this, as the price of free is right," he stated with a laugh. "I was surprised that the hall was only about 3/4 full," he added. "People are sure missing out on hearing some very talented students perform so well." "I'm headed up for bed," said Bobby, taking his half-filled Coke bottle with him. "I'm going to listen to my stereo for a few minutes," he added. "Good night, son," added Bill. "Night, honey," said Mom warmly. "Sleep tight." With that, Bobby headed up the stairs to his room. He set his Coke on his desk and turned on his Marantz stereo and found the music station from the college at 88.1 on the FM dial. He noticed right away that someone must have recorded the concert as it was being broadcast that same night at the station. It sounded almost as good as it did at the university live, he thought. His Dynaco A25 speakers did a good job of reproducing the concert they all enjoyed so much. The Marantz and the Dynacos were a gift from his late grandfather, as was the dual 1219 turntable that came as a set. Bobby thought that he needed to start saving his money and get a nice cassette deck so he could learn to record his practicing at home so he could hear if he was improving or not. He thought Mark could help him with that, and maybe he could meet the people over at the college radio station and learn from them. Bobby thought more about all that he had changed, all of that as he changed into his pajamas and went into the bathroom to brush his teeth before hopping into bed. He left the stereo on listening to the concert, but felt so relaxed that as he fell asleep within about 15 minutes, as the music played, he looked at the mobile of the solar system hanging from his ceiling above his bed. His eyes got heavier and heavier, and he was gone. The sun coming through the window hit him right in the face in the morning. He looked at the clock and it was 7:20. He then could smell the bacon his mom was cooking down in the kitchen. He put on his bathrobe after his bathroom run and then bounded down the stairs where his dad was reading the Sunday paper at the table with his coffee. "Bobby, scrambled eggs okay?" asked Mom. "Pour yourself some OJ on the table," she added. "Scrambled is good, Mom," said Bobby as he poured the OJ into his New York Yankees glass. "Dad, they were playing the concert on the university radio station last night," stated Bobby with great excitement. "I listened to some of it, but I think I fell asleep pretty fast," he added. "I came into your room and turned it off," added Dad. "You were fast asleep, and your mother and I were not far behind you, getting to bed," he added. "It sounded very good as I listened for a minute or two before turning it off," he concluded. "Dad, I was wondering about that, and if it might be possible to get a cassette recorder to go with my stereo, and a microphone, and record my practicing my clarinet at home," asked Bobby. "I would pay you back with my chore money, if that would be okay," asked Bobby. "I could ask Mark at the university what might be an affordable model that would work out for me," he added. "That would be fine," said Dad. "Just keep it not too expensive, but good enough that it will sound fine," he added. "Let me know what you find out tomorrow after your lesson. Now hurry up and eat, as we need to get ready for church," Bill concluded with a smile. Bobby finished all his scrambled eggs and bacon, and even had a slice of raisin toast, and drank all of his juice, and then headed up to get dressed. He found his sport coat, but decided no tie today would be all right. Quickly got dressed and headed back downstairs and waited for his parents to come down. They all headed out to the car and saw the Davis family about to leave as well. Bobby waved at Diane and said he would see her in Sunday school class. They would have a lot to talk about from last night.